Let me tell you something. Lethal Company. You want a good horror game? Bam. Lethal Company. You want a really good roguelike? Bam. Lethal Company. You want a good multiplayer game to play with your friends on the weekends? Bam. Lethal Company. I've even made some new friends playing this game.
Big room?
Oh yeah, jump down here. Jump down right here. It's a good spot to land. This thing checks off every box for a good party game to hop on with your buddies with. If you want a really quick rundown, bam, there it is. And if you have a friend who doesn't want to pay the measly price for this game, exile them. Open the airlock. Just and I'm not saying that because it's new and popular.
You can pick that up. You got it.
Oh, yeah. I actually didn't know what this game was until my friend Failure told me about it, and I very hesitantly spent however much money this game costs on Steam to not regret it even a little bit. It is an absolute banger. As previously mentioned, you land your ship down and enter a facility. In this facility, there's a bunch of scraps, which are all worth different things that you're trying to bring back to your ship. The rooms in here can vary from things that you'll have to make jumps to, to large ones, to hallways, to the steam vent is open, and only one of our friends out of every group that I've played with actually wants to push them and go in.
The loot, didn't he?
But whatever, the variation in the rooms is really not the big deal here. You'll probably be excited when you find something like a storage room, and it's really easy to scan hallways, but you're really only looking for the items in here. No special or bonus rooms, just gameplay. The thing that makes this game not only scary, but gives you something really, really good to look out for is the enemies. And not only the enemies, but the limitation of your character. It is very frequent when I see a game that'll give you powerful enemies that you need to face head on. That is sort of the core of the combat of a lot of games. But in this game, your character only has one button, the flee button. Okay, that's not entirely true. There are a few enemies you're able to take out with stop signs, shovels, and other things you could assume you could batter the head over somebody with. But aside from that, you are pretty much defenseless besides your wit, and hoping that something does not camp the door right in front of you. Which does happen. It is not entirely against RNG for the big spider and the blob to just say, "Nuh-uh." I'm gonna try to lure it out, alright? What? Fuck! Ah! But personally, I think that that's part of the fun. It's also part of the reason that you want to bring your friends on, because with that, you could have somebody on the cams, or you could have somebody manning a teleporter that you saved up all your money for, to get you out of a bad situation, and maybe you'll be able to get back in before it hits nighttime. GG gamer, well played, you did good. Yeah, that's one of the things you're probably gonna want to look out for in the game. You're also on a time limit. Not only does your ship leave by default at midnight, but it's sometime when the sun goes down. I think it's between like 6 and 7-ish usually, depending on the planet that you're at, if it's not eclipsed. One of 3 things that I know of will show up. Either scary dinosaurs, giants, make it! Or the sandworm. The outside enemies are one of those things that I had a really hard time dealing with at the beginning of the game. I assumed that they were sort of a last-ditch clutch you could make to the ship if you so happen to be left behind way too late. It turns out they all have their own mechanics, and you're actually supposed to be able to avoid them by using your mind tricks or whatever you guys have. All I see are pixels ever. So my brain just says go that way and hope that nothing happens to you. But a player who values maybe their inventory a little bit more will probably realize that the dinosaurs can't actually see, and they're inherently very clumsy. I know that they're not actually called dinosaurs, but that's what me and my friends called them when we first started playing the game, so yeah, my bad. Meaning that they'll throw themselves in one direction and you'll be able to avoid them so long as you kind of psych them out. Come up here now, come up here now! They're also very attracted to sound. You could buy a boom box, which is not only for sick jams, but you could also set it down somewhere away from your ship to maybe attract those dinosaurs to it and not have any issues with them. Or you could just get killed by the sandworm, which you're apparently supposed to retrace your steps for, and of course there's these giants.
He seems to be walking in my direction with certain intentions.
I don't remember what to do about the giants. Apparently they play like little kids, and they just kind of eat things whenever they feel like it. I'm pretty sure that what you're supposed to do is stay under and behind things, but when you're in a forest and the ground is flat because gameplay, it's actually it's kind of hard to avoid them. Failure! I'm distracting him! Make it to the ship! Make it! Of course, I totally skipped over the mechanics of the enemies actually indoors. Hey, dude. Like a big spider. Hell no, jumped it! Or bug that will steal your things. He's such a dick. Snare flea, Slender Man, half. The mannequin, the Jack in the Box, the Spore Lizard. Funny character only one member of your party will be able to see in a given run. And probably a couple more that I've missed, but the one that you're gonna come in contact the absolute most and probably first is the Snare Flea. This is also, prior to the most recent update, the only enemy that you're actually able to kill, as far as I know. These little things hide in the rafters. They're not that fast, they don't have a strong bite, and they honestly look like they would be great served as a kebab. But what these guys do have is they grab you. they grab your face until you die. Now, fortunately, they're actually very easy to deal with. As long as you have another player by you, you'll very easily be able to batter them off with a shovel or a stop sign or something else you could batter something over the head with. You could even do my special strat of hitting them so many times that you forget that you're just beating a snare flea off of somebody and kill them with the shovel immediately after. Did I f***ing kill him with the... Oh, you win some, you lose some, boys, you know what I mean? But that, of course, is only if you're sticking in a group and only if one of your friends has one of these items. Now, if you're with a friend who doesn't have them and you happen to have one, the best thing to do is probably to scroll through your mouse wheel and spam G. This is the keybind to drop whatever it is you're holding, and seeing as they're grabbing your face, you're not going to know what it is.
It's down, it's down! Where is it? You dropped it off the side!
What do you mean I dropped it off the side? So my recommendation is just to back up so that it's as spread out as possible and just hope that you drop the thing and also hope that your friend picks it up in time and stops screaming and just looking at you and not running away.
Get up in! Get up in!
Just start screaming. Honestly, that's a valid strat. I'd probably do that in real life, in a real situation. Just looking at you and screaming. I have never seen somebody not do that. But these are just one of many enemies that you're going to encounter. Maybe it's some of the more common ones. There's usually one on each stage, at least. Probably the second most common guy, or at least the one that we run into the very most, Slender Man.
Your activity.
Slender Man. He's actually called the Flower Man, or nicknamed the Flower Man. His actual scientific name is
Bracken,
who behaves, rather unfavorably. What you want to do with this guy is stare at him for just a little bit, because if you stare at him for too long, he'll get pissed. Just stare him down and run past him. Okay, yeah, that's not good. But if you don't keep an eye on him, then he will... But staring him down for too long, he will... It's not chill! It's not chill! He makes for kind of a weird gameplay loop, because once you've got him on your back, and he will switch between players, if he is in the dungeon, he will find you, and he will just look at you. You're gonna... Jesus Christ! Because you kind of have to just look back and forth and micromanage a brand new thing. It's actually pretty interesting. Or he could do this. You could be walking in a straight line with your friend, you're just following behind him, and then your friend turns around and you're gone. You're gone. One of the cool things that he does is he takes your body. We've had a few incidences where, we're talking for a second, but actually makes for a pretty cinematic little cutscene. One of the other really common enemies you're probably gonna run into is Bob the Blob.
What the fuck
is the Blob? This guy sucks. He moves incredibly slow, he's not scary. Getting fucking blobbed! But he will kill you instantaneously upon contact. I think you could probably touch like the outsides of this guy and you might not die, but there is no way that you can run through him. I have tried. What you gotta do with this guy is hop up on a raised surface. This would, not really be that big of a deal if you weren't getting hunted by Slender Man. Although most of the time, it's usually just wait for him to show up underneath you. This enemy is not difficult to deal with. The tough part about it comes when he corners you into rooms. He's much larger than the doors you can pass through, and particularly if you're stuck with another enemy, it can be really difficult to evade them in a very small environment. This has happened a few times with the next enemy I'm going to talk about, the Bunker Spider. This thing is a big f***ing spider. Yo, failure, do not turn around, bro! It sucks. In fact, it has a canonical kill on sight command laid out in-game. In the in-game universe, you are authorized to kill this thing on sight because they do not benefit their environment at all, and they're very dangerous to explorers and wildlife. And people still can't figure out why I'm arachnophobic. It's not in the legs, it's not in the eyes, it's not in one particular thing. I just see a spider and I freak out. Like, it just triggers it's like the whole thing. I do not know. If anybody else is like scared of spiders and they don't know why, just comment down below. I'd love to hear. I'm probably not the only person. These things, of course, you have a reason to be scared of, though. It's f***ing Shelob, and it's probably one of the most difficult enemies to manage in the game. Canonically, according to their AI, they're supposed to hide above doorways and stuff like that so that their prey doesn't see them as they're walking in. somewhere unsuspecting. But the way that I usually find them is hidden in a nest, chilling on the ceiling, or just generally being somewhere I don't want them to be. They don't immediately chase after you when you find them. In fact, they're usually pretty passive. But one thing they do, cool, is lay down a bunch of webs. Once you get stuck in these, they'll come and bite you, they'll come and beat you up, but there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. If you have a shovel or something like that on you, apparently you can destroy them pretty easily, but the damn things are pretty fast despite being one of the slower enemies in the game. And if you don't have a lot of stamina or you have a lot of weight on you, each item carries weight, it's probably Dunskies. Or you could just deal with them the way that I do. There have been multiple occasions where I will just run and jump over the spider, which is a totally viable strat. They might hit you once, but they're probably not going to kill you with that one little tap, leaving my friend in the corner of the room scared because he did not follow that lead. This actually works really well, and if you can find yourself in a good spot where you have a good head run start at it, I actually do recommend just jumping over it. Try not to get stuck in any of its webs, and try not to get blocked by Blob, or killed by Slenderman, or killed by Snare Flea, or chased down by Half. What? Yeah, I mean, all these guys were scary before, but this guy is, he literally eats his legs to get out of his, like, egg or whatever, and then turns into this fucking monster. These things are some of the most terrifying things you can run into because they are very good at one thing: moving really fast, straight forward. Yes, straightforward is a disadvantage for these guys, and if you're able to strafe them to the side, you can probably avoid them pretty easily. However, in a game made up of mostly hallways, to the side is not typically an option. And if it is, you still gotta contend with the rest of the guys like Bunker Spider. But in a very lucky scenario where you're in a 4-way intersection or a 3-way intersection or something like that, and he's coming at you from straight ahead, you might be able to jump out of the way. This is not something you can just take a shovel to, this is not something that you're gonna be able to run away from, and it is not something that you're going to be smiling to see. This guy is utterly terrifying, and maybe I don't run into him very often. He is definitely a welcome member in the Bunker Spider, tier list on the Bunker Spider tier. One thing I will say about this guy that I do notice pretty often is that he's very loud. So if you hear a loud thumping behind a door, probably don't open it. Probably we're gonna do that anyways, but if you're one of those people that really wants to see what's back there, it's probably that guy. And if it's not that guy, then I wish you good luck on whatever the fuck it is, because I will not be joining you in that excursion. I will be in the ship watching the cams. But having somebody on the cams is actually a really valuable thing that you could do. One of the items you're able to buy is a walkie-talkie, and that means you can communicate from wherever you want, so long as they have a charge. Having somebody on the cams means you're able to see where enemies are coming from, where the next room might be in, and even objects on the ground. Given it's not entirely my playstyle to sit back here, it can be really intense just to watch this 2D image walk around, especially having to communicate with somebody that something is there and you don't know what it is. Yep. It's actually pretty fun. One of my new friends, Bambeo, that we played this game with, was actually pretty adamant that he wanted to do this job.
Loaffy, take a walkie-talkie.
Yep. Yeah, drop it.
I'm a fit.
Yeah. And it ends up being really helpful, particularly in our game of 4. If there was just 2 players going in here, it would definitely be a comfort thing or maybe a good roleplay, but you're probably not going to make it out with a very big haul, seeing as each player only has 4 inventory slots. But who knows, maybe somebody else can manage to find a way to make it more optimal. Now, not everybody might have 4 players to play with, but the game balances itself out really well, lowering the quota depending on how many players are in your lobby. That being said, with 4 players, you're able to pretty much over-smoke it every single time, leaving you with a lot of money left over to buy one of the many gadgets in this game. Now, I'd be lying if I said this game went crazy with its items, but I'd also be lying if I said Zap Gun didn't sound pretty cool. Turns out it just stuns enemies, and for this previous update at least, it stunned me too. I was in a stare down with Half, and I stunned him, or at least I thought I did. It turns out that it just froze my player in place. I had endless stamina, I had endless charge, and Half was moving closer to me every single breath I took. But I'm pretty sure it's fixed by now. But even with bugs in the game like this, they really only add to the multiplayer experience, because your friends are laughing really hard at you. You're screaming. The good kind of classic Wednesday nights, you know. And then, you know, eventually you guys get to pull up the ship and buy yourself some cozy lights with one of the many decorations you can also get for your ship. You can also buy 2 types of teleporters here, like I mentioned previously, one of which teleporting players directly out of the complex, but with none of their items. The other of which, teleporting players at random into the complex. There he goes.
Holy shit. Oh, dude, it's sparking.
This is really funny. It's got a bit of a long cooldown, but if you cool it off and then put all 4 people on there, you'll be teleported to random sections on the map, maybe next to each other, maybe not. This is also our primary speedrunning method, as it drops you right into the heat of things. In fact, it dropped one of our friends right underneath a snare flute, killing him instantly, as there was nobody else around him, and you also can't take items through this one, so even if there were, he was pretty much f***ed. Now that might sound suboptimal, but using this thing, we've had some of our most lucrative runs, coming out with enough items to afford the new moons, which are extended versions of the gameplay loop we've seen previously, with a couple of brand new enemies, and some brand new environments you're gonna have to traverse. Probably the most difficult variant of these is the snowy planet. You can't see anything. And this is with no attribute. Come to think of it, I'm not actually sure that the snow planets can have attributes, as I've never seen one with one, or maybe my friend just never selected those because that didn't sound like fun at all. Most standard planets can come with one of a few, like foggy, rainy, stormy, flooded, eclipsed. These all give a different effect to the planet, like for instance having a ton of water fill up chasms, making it much more difficult to get back to your ship, having lightning strike when you have metal things. It could just strike you at random, but this tends to happen a lot more when you carry anything of metal, which is most things in the complex, so good luck with that. I did find, however, items that the lightning is being attracted to start to give off a static charge. So if you can switch to these fast enough when you hear the little zip-zap sounds, you might be able to drop them and back off in time for you to not die. This, however, was only the case for me once, and it was when the item I was holding in my hand did the thing. Apparently they can select anything in your inventory, so good luck with that information. Foggy makes things foggy. It's really hard to find your way around here. I find it difficult to navigate even when we're just on the forest planet, so this is pretty much a game breaker for me. But players who know where to go will have probably less problems with this. Maybe except for the forest level where you have giants to deal with, but I don't know. Maybe there's some other strategy you can come up with. And then there's Eclipsed. This just makes it nighttime permanently. We don't do this one very often. But let's go back to the snow planet. I'm not entirely sure this is the case all the time, but when we first entered the snow planet, it was a library. This was a brand new location that we hadn't seen before. Hey. Previously, it was the SCP Foundation pretty much every single time. This change of scenery is jarring, and it makes the game very fresh again, especially with the addition of brand new enemies and old ones alike. This is the first place that we saw the mannequin guy.
The fuck is that?
I don't know how he works. I think that he's something like Slender Man, but he looks more like he's from an indie horror game. So, yeah, that's fun. Silly and goofy looking. There's also this Jack-in-the-Box, which I've only seen once, and I'm not sure if I personally have any clips of it, but I'll try to find some online if I have to, or hunt one down. But this guy is very silly and goofy looking until he starts winding up, and then he becomes way too silly and goofy looking. I have no idea how this guy works. I'm pretty sure he's just a funny pair of legs with an arm, and then he is a big scary skull and also still just a funny legs with arm. I personally didn't have any issues with him because we had one of the quote-unquote endgame items called the jetpack, and I was able to fly myself up onto a chandelier getting this shot of a bunch of hoarding bugs. But beyond the new enemies and the swarm of hoarding bugs, the library works the exact same way you'd expect it to. You find a bunch of loot, and you get out of here. But you're probably wondering at this point, what exactly do you do with all the stuff that you've collected, and where does that money go? Well, it goes to the company. What is the company? Well, you'd assume it's the thing that you're working for, right? The company, as we've come to know it, is apparently just this gigantic squid monster. When I first played this game, I thought that this guy was just some sort of hired employee, or something like that. But, that is apparently wrong. As far as we've been able to decipher lore-wise, the company seems to be some sort of cosmic being, or some planetary destroying entity that's only satiated by eating literal garbage. He's trapped in this giant box, and whoever it is that you're actually working for is paying you to keep it happy, so it doesn't destroy the universe. I'm assuming. But that's only lore-wise. Gameplay-wise, if you blow the funny horn at this guy, he gets really angry, and after a successful trip to the company, you'll leave and probably have a lot of money left over, which you can use to buy said gadgets like before. But if you don't meet the quota... Oh, we'll stop. Okay. This is where the game becomes a roguelike. Once this happens, you completely restart. That is it. You've done your run. Now, surprisingly enough, this is actually not that easy to do. We've only had it happen a few times, and it's only when disaster strikes that you really have a hard time getting your quota done. But for seasoned players, this is really not that bad of a challenge. But for players like us, versus one other enemy that I didn't mention, it can go awry. Enter bees. Apologies for not remembering if it was Bambeo or Bundun that figured this out, but apparently you're able to scare away the bees.
What do you mean there's no way? Why are you getting beezed? What is happening?
In doing so, they leave behind their nest, and this thing is worth a whopping 75 smackaroos. If you can get it back into your ship, that is. And if you can't, the bees will swarm back at it.
They did not go back to the nest.
Is there a reason? Wait, why is Bundun dead?
And if they don't, they will swarm your friend.
little bit of a problem.
Yeah? What is it though? You just, this is very comical, but also a really good way to get team KO'd. How about you climb aboard? Oh, Jesus, there's still... That is not ideal! But if you're like us and you manage to clutch it out and make it back to the company level with these things, they're a really good way to meet the quota. Unless you do this. Yeah, so if you didn't detect it there, our buddy jumped off the edge with the bee's nest and managed to survive by landing on the little secret platform underneath the company level. This would be a totally cool clutch if you could climb the ladder while holding objects. This led to a bunch of finagling, trying to get the dang thing up, but there was no avail. Two of us SD'd trying to get over to the pipe. Alright, that's cool. That's really cool. I really like that. God. That was awesome, actually. We can put ourselves up on like the thing.
Way? Right, I was gonna say, is there a way?
I don't want to talk about it. And the other one also SD'd trying to get over to the pipe, I think. Leaving us with one guy who was desperately trying to get the beehive up, only to not succeed.
Thank God.
Okay, there we go.
That is our first full loss on the company level. That was awesome. Wow, very cool. We all team KO'd on the only level that there is nothing really dangerous in besides water. And an enemy that only shows up when you tell it to. But that's just my friend group. And maybe your friend group doesn't team KO on the only level that can't kill you. But whether you've been playing the game recently or you're a brand new player, I hope that I've given you a little bit of information and a little bit of an idea of what the game is all about. This is definitely one of the more fun games I played on Steam recently, especially for an indie project. A lot of these recently have just been kind of generic movement shooters, which there's nothing wrong with, but it does get a little bit tiresome every now and again. And with this new surge of YouTube game devs, when they finally figure out they don't just have to remake Minecraft, I am excited to see what people end up doing with this kind of stuff. I really hope that this game laid out a pretty good foundation for people to try and reinvent all these mechanics, much like it did in the first place. And I'm especially happy to see this game getting the love that it deserves, albeit a little bit of a buggy mess sometimes. This definitely has my recommendation, and even with how popular it is, I would honestly love to be the reason that some more players start hopping on it just to enjoy some weekends with their buddies. Whether you like horror, or whether you like action, or whether you just like party games. This is a really fun one to hop on, very much worth its price, and I would definitely buy it for another person. And even if you don't have friends, they've got a pretty bustling Discord server where you can jump on with a group of randoms. Or I think even an online play where you can just have the game tab you into a public lobby for you. But that's about it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please leave me a little... And also share it with a friend, a family member, your grandma, I don't know. It would help me out a lot. And at the end of the day, good luck out there, gamers. Hope that I taught you something. And that's about it. See ya. I want to give a huge thank you to Bambeo, Bundun, Failure, and Terraria Slime for appearing in this video and helping me make it. Yeah, no, we played the game with Failure, Bam, and Bundun, and oh my gosh, they're absolutely hilarious people. All of them make content. I highly recommend that you go and check them out. Thank you, Terraria Slime, for joining me in my late night excursions to try to collect some footage for this, because I was missing quite a bit from our personal run, since a lot of it was kind of off camera. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Please go check everybody out. I recorded this entire voiceover at like 3 in the morning. Like, thank you, see ya.